Hello, Supercoaches, and welcome to our Mid-Range Bible podcast for 2026. I personally think it's one of the best years for mid-rangers in Supercoach, certainly in recent history, maybe even in history. To chat us through it, we have Wilson Smith and Jett Hatton as well. How's your team coming along?
Good so far. No changes from the last couple of weeks, but I've gone a bit of a risky strategy, but I'm pretty happy with how it's looking so far.
The risky strategy being?
I'm going big at hooker, front row, and centre wing, which are three positions that I normally never start the season going big at.
Yeah, I'm also kind of tending that way as well. How's your team shaping up?
Good, mate. Only 4 Sharks in the team this year. So
Yeah.
a bit lighter on than previous years. But no, going good. Haven't made any team changes over the last few weeks, but it's going to heat up as the preseason gets closer. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, lots of pods in there as well. You can check out Jett's team, Wilson's team, my team as well. We've got a big announcement coming for Supercoach very shortly. Something exciting is happening. It's Supercoach first, so check out our socials for that information. I just want to quickly run through a few bits of news that have unfolded in the last few days or so, certainly in the last week since we're in this studio. One is that Sua Fa'alogo, and I apologise if I've got that pronunciation wrong, but he is being backed by Travis Main, who's a reporter up with the Titans in Queensland, and it sounds like by the coach as well. He's been backed to start in a wing spot for the Titans for round 1. He's been compared to Brian To'o. We're hearing Brian To'o clone. If we've got a guy at $201,000 starting on the wing who's been compared to Brian To'o, then he has to be in your Supercoach team.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a bit that there hasn't really been more than a few standout centre wing cheapies this year. So, I mean, if he's anything like Brian To'o and he is a cheapie, then he becomes a bit of a must-have if he actually does get that spot.
So he's a former Penrith player, and we're getting a lot of former Penrith players popping up at other clubs now as cheapies, which is great, including David Fifita from the Dragons and Lasati from the Storm. Both those guys came through the Penrith system, and so did this guy. They've lost Brian Kelly. The chat is from Trav that they've got him on a wing, Jojo Fifita on the other wing. So if that happens, it'll be huge.
Yeah, they've lost Khan Pereira as well. He's obviously at the Warriors now.
Yeah.
So that left wing spot is there to fill. I was trying to figure out who's going to fill that spot. I had Tony Francis in my team, thinking that he could be a smoky, but if this guy's got his nose in front, I'll certainly just downgrade him, put him straight in my team.
Also at the Titans, and I'll point out that at the Titans this year, there could be so many positions change, but they're going to be an absolute Supercoach goldmine at some stage. Not only do we have that backline spot up for grabs, but Cooper Bai, very popular in the back row for Supercoach, had an amazing debut last year. A lot of people are on him. He's one of the more popular players in Supercoach, and we chatted about him in the Cheapie Bible a couple of weeks ago. But the Storm are trying to get him to the club. If he signs for the Storm in 2027, it's not for this season, does that mean he is now just dead to Josh Hannay and he doesn't get the minutes that we were hoping?
Yeah, well, I think leaning in his favour is that I think there is minutes up for grabs. We were talking about it a bit off air before. Jamin Jolliffe has done his ACL, so that could cause a bit of a forward pack reshuffle at the Titans, and you'd think that Tino now moves back to front row. Chris Randall could be, shifting to lock, and there could be minutes for edge up for grabs. So Cooper Bike could be a big winner from that. So I think, there is every chance that if he does sign with the Storm, that they just opt to go with someone else. But I think from what we saw in his limited minutes last year, that he has a lot of talent, and Titans need guys like that on their team. So I reckon, regardless, he could be in for more minutes.
The Titans really want to keep him, and the Storm really want to own him. So this is going to be an interesting thing to watch. The other issue I've got is that if he leaves and they accelerate it to this season, then we've got Cooper Bai, which does happen a fair bit, where if they're like, look, if you're gone, you may as well go now.
Yeah.
If you've got Cooper Bai now at the Melbourne Storm, hasn't been under their system, you'd think he'd be a fair way down their list until he sort of proves himself to Bellamy. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree with Wilso in that I don't think him signing with Melbourne will affect his minutes at all. I think they sort of need options there, and Josh Hannay's not a silly coach. He's going to play their best players. They want to make a run at the finals. So I don't think that worries him at all. But, yeah, I agree. If he does go to Melbourne early, it's going to be tough because they've got quite a bit of depth in that back row of guys that have been there for quite a few years. So you would think that they'd have their heads in front of Cooper.
Supercoach Plus is, of course, $29.95 for the year. You have a free trial right now. So I suggest you get in there, play around, look at the projections, look at the ownership stats, captaincy stats, all that sort of stuff. You have a free trial until the end of round 2. So fiddle around now, see if you like it, and then round 2 comes around. You can sign up for that product. Also, just share your teams to social media as well. We love that sort of stuff. First 2 mid-rangers picked for this season. This is the Mid-Range Bible podcast. What are you thinking, Wilso?
First off for me is Cam Murray. Comes in at a massive discount this year because he only played 1 game last year. I think he only scored 22 in that game coming off the bench. And so it comes in at a massive discount. And this is a guy who, I've been looking at his numbers this morning actually. For the previous 3 years, he averaged 62, 63 and 71. So this is a guy who is a proven Supercoach gun that you can get at a mid-range price this year. So for me, he's just a no-brainer and a must-have.
Yep, we spoke about him in the Guns podcast. He is technically in the mid-range range for this year, but I put him in the Guns podcast because I think he will go from being a mid-range guy to being a gun this year. So he's in my side as well. Who's your number 1 mid-ranger picked?
Hamish Stewart for me. I think he's in for a massive year. Jack DeBellin's obviously gone. He's at the Eels now, so someone needs to fill that number 13 jersey, and Shane Flanagan has a massive opinion of Hamish Stewart. I think he's going to play big minutes, and he's a big points per minute guy. So last year he knocked out 1.1 points per minute, which is higher than Eli Katoa, Dylan Lucas, all the top guys in that position. So if he can get 60 to 65 minutes, I think he'll comfortably average about 60 to 70, and to me that makes him a must-have to start the year.
I do really like it, but I think there are a lot of guys at 2RF in the mid-range. We'll get to them all later. It doesn't have that dual position for this season though as well, which is a little bit annoying. So he's probably not quite in my top few 2RFs for mid-range, but he could easily be there pretty shortly. So I do like that one. My first, I've chosen the obvious ones. First one being David Fifita. He is the second most popular player in the game as we currently speak. So not really telling Supercoaches anything new. The thing that is new here is that he picked up a rib injury at pre-season training. Hopefully he only misses a week of training. It's not too serious, but I will point out that it has affected the pre-season of the most popular player in Supercoach has been affected somewhat, but it's not enough for me to trade him out of my side.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I'm not too concerned about it at all. He'll probably miss a week, maybe 2 of training, and then he'll be straight back into it. And I'm really excited about Fifita as well. My next pick is Sua Fa'alogo at the Storm. Obviously, Ryan Pappenhausen's gone, so the fullback spot at Melbourne is up for grabs. And he has looked really good playing at fullback for them in the past. He's mostly played off the bench or wing last year, but obviously the opportunity's there now. And I'm pretty sure they've confirmed that he will get first crack at fullback. So really exciting player, and yeah, must have as well, I think.
Yeah, the numbers make sense on him. So last year on the wing, averaged 58. You'd think he can up that to 70 this year. They've got a good buy schedule. Will he be a keeper for the entire season? Not sure, but he's still a really good purchase. So hard to ignore, even though fullback is such a red hot spot and he doesn't have CTW this year. What are you thinking?
For Sua Fa'alogo?
Yeah.
I think you could fade him. I've got him in my team. He's one of my favourite players to watch, but there's a lot of options at the fullback position, and you sort of don't want to go away from Keano Kini just because of his upside's incredible and he's a safe pick. But yeah, like I don't see the playmaking there yet of Sua, and he also makes a lot of mistakes, which gets me worried on a team coached by Craig Bellamy. But it's hard to turn away from the fullback in the Melbourne Storm at that price.
Yeah, while we're talking about fullback, I was butt in with my one now. It is Keano Kini, who you mentioned. For me, he's the top guy to bring in at fullback and one of the top guys of the entire season. So his price is based on an average of 45, yet he could pretty easily average 70, I think, and he's done that in the past. He's got the huge work rate, which Fa'alogo doesn't have. So Kini, is he an absolute must?
Yeah, 100%. He averaged about 72 in 2024. Takes runs like his prime Joey Manu. 30 runs a game in the World Cup, was it? Something like that. Something ridiculous. But, yeah, you've got to have Kini in your side.
And who's your final mid?
We're talking to David Fifita before, someone that reminds me of a young David Fifita. Quick, fast, agile, huge. Big Leka Halasima.
Yes.
I think he's a must-have.
Yeah.
Supercoach, to me, at the end of the day, it's about having guys in your team that are exciting to watch, and Leka Halasima is exciting. So
yeah, you're not going to have a bored Friday night watching the Warriors when Leka Halasima is in your team. The only issue I've got is that, does he actually get this 80 minutes? I know the coach has spoken about it and says he needs to be an 80-minute player. He should be an 80-minute player, but has he done enough in the off-season to impress the coach to say, look, you can be trusted with 80 minutes each week? And I don't know what the answer is yet, but if we see any indication, or Andrew Webster comes out and says that that's going to happen, then 100% he's in my side. I
don't think it matters if he plays 80 minutes. Like, he's got a big work rate. If he even plays that 60 to 65 minutes, it allows him more time to go harder, and with those big explosive plays that we know he's capable of. So if he plays 65 minutes, it doesn't worry me at all. So if he plays 80, it's nice, but it's not going to turn me off if he doesn't play it.
We've got heaps of content up now. I know this is only, our 5th podcast of the season, but we've been going for a long time. We've got content up since October, so check that out. Cheapy Bible's up. All our teams are up. Wilso's draft rankings is going to be a fresh one coming up pretty soon, plus your draft sleepers, which I think is arguably more important than the actual draft rankings themselves. So check out the site for that in the news section of the app. For the next segment, we're just going to run through the most popular guys in the mid-range range. And David Fifita we've already started with, so I think we all agree on him. Even with that recent injury issue at the Rabbitohs training, he is a guy to get into your team. Keano Kini is second on the list at 50% ownership. I personally think he should be higher than that, but we've already spoken about him. Sua Fa'alogo is third. Again, we've spoken about him. So we end up with Reed Mahoney. I like him going from the Bulldogs to the Cowboys. He was frozen out by the Bulldogs, but he should play 80 minutes at the Cowboys. The issue I've got is that they've bought Sonny Luke to the club. So does he cut into Reed Mahoney's minutes? Remember, he averaged about 60 minutes last year, so he really does need to play 80 minutes to be a solid Supercoach purchase this year.
Yeah, and they've lost Carl Lawton as well, who's sort of filling in on that bench utility role a little bit. But I still think that they've brought in Reed Mahoney to be an 80-minute guy. Obviously, Sonny Luke getting signed as well is a bit concerning, and he's every chance, or even if not him, someone else is a chance of getting like a bench spot, which could take some minutes away from Mahoney, who I've been looking at his numbers, and I actually think Reed Mahoney kind of does need to be an 80-minute guy to be a worthwhile purchase. Even if he doesn't, he will still make money. But I think, personally, I just think he actually needs to be playing that 80-minute role to be worth it for Supercoach. And I personally think he will actually get that role, but there is some risk there for sure.
The other thing to point out, we're talking about 80 minutes, is that he's replacing a guy up there in Reece Robson who basically played 80 minutes most weeks. You look at his minutes and they're really only down over Origin, averaged in the mid to high 70s for minutes last year. So if you're looking for a like-for-like replacement, Reed Mahoney probably is that guy. Your thoughts on Mahoney?
They do have Harrison Edwards on the bench, and he played dummy half all through junior footy up on the mid-north coast. So he can easily slot in there for 20 minutes a game, and he's a big body they can just throw out there. So to me, I'm not convinced he's an 80-minute player. And at the dummy half position, I honestly think you just either go Brayley or Grant and just don't worry about no one else.
Yeah, some other good options there. I'm sorry if I'm stealing someone's pod for later on. If the Manly guy.
Yeah, Jackson.
Yeah, no, let's wait for him for later on. You've got Brandon Smith, who seems to be impressing in the off-season. He's off the booze as well, so he's a guy who can bring in at cheaper range as well. So we do have lots of hookers on offer. Trey Mooney, he's moved from the Rabbitohs, from the Raiders to the Knights. The only issue I've got with him, I think he is a really talented guy. He's got so much attack, which is great for Supercoach. But he averaged 57 points last year in 39 minutes. So his PPM is crazy. Lots of attacking stats in there. only 4 games. So I feel like it's probably not sustainable what he did last year at the Raiders, but he should improve on that 39 minutes as well. For me, it basically evens out. I think he'll probably average what he did last year in only those 4 games at the Raiders.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's sustainable. I think the fact that he was coming off the bench, I think in those games for the Raiders, limited minutes, he was able to just come out and, punch out a massive workload. I think he will be starting at the Knights this year. I'm blanking on his name, but he went to the Bulldogs.
Leo Thompson.
Yeah, Leo Thompson's gone. And
Jack Hetherington as well.
Yeah, so there is a massive opportunity for him there. And I think his PPM will come down, but even if it doesn't, if he can maintain a 1-point PPM, he will see more minutes this year, so he could still score relatively around the same, and he'll be a bit more consistent that if he is starting. So I've got him in my team. I really, really like him, but if it all hinges on him actually starting. If he comes off the bench, he would be an absolute no-go for me.
Yeah, he's just awkwardly priced for me as well. He's not.
Yeah.
If he was, 80k cheaper, closer to that 300, late 300s mark, I'd have him in. But he's just awkwardly priced at about mid 400k. So they got another guy there like Jermaine McEwen that you can have in the same spot, and I prefer his job security and minutes. So I like Trey Mooney. I think he's a good player, but just awkwardly priced for me.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. I don't think he is the best mid-ranger at their club, and we'll get to McEwen in a sec. Mitchell Moses, we did mention him in the Top Guns podcast last week, but he actually is in the mid-range this year after what was a pretty poor season, mainly due to injury last year at the Eels. Should pick up the goal kicking, tough run. There's so many things to weigh up here.
Yeah, I mean, he's a proven gun of the past, and with Lomax gone, he should be kicking goals again, so that will really, really help him. But I think I've said in previous podcasts that I don't think he's a guy that I am interested in starting with at the season just because of the tough run to start. But I think he is a prime upgrade candidate, a few months into the season, especially with all this cheapy halves. So he's not someone I'm looking at starting with, but he's someone who I think will be good to bring in later on in the season. Yeah,
I agree with also. Sort of a few months ago before I started looking at the draw, I had him in my team just because of the price, but that first 5 rounds is just it's an absolute gauntlet, so I couldn't go there.
On to Brian To'o. We mentioned that there's Brian To'o clone up there at Titans, who is extremely popular, and he's surging through the most popular players in Supercoach. But Brian To'o, and we did mention him last week in the Top Guns podcast, so go and check that out. But for me, he's averaged sort of 70 in the past and only averaged 60 last year. I think the main reason was that he was just basically injured the entire year. He had knee issues, hamstring issues. How bad are those problems? That they're the sort of thing that you can carry through your entire career. As soon as you get a couple of hamstring injuries, does that become a problem for him going forward? Plus, he has one of the toughest schedule in the comp by a long way. So I'm going to fade Brian To'o. He's not for me.
I've got him in my team at the moment, but he's not someone I'm sold on just because they do have such a rough start to the season that I think if you go with him, he will leak cash early. But he's just, for me, assuming he has gotten over his injury woes, he's probably one of the best at centre wing in terms of base. So he will be punching out a lot of work, and hopefully Panthers' attack clicks a bit more again this year, and he can actually get back to his previous best form, because he, like you said, he did have a pretty severe drop-off last year. He was still one of the best at the position, but for his own standards, it was a bit of a drop-off. So I have some concerns, but he's in my team for now, but I'm by no means locked in on him.
Yeah, I want to see him string together a few games before I go near him. Just those soft tissue injuries, they just scare me, especially with a guy with as many miles on his legs as Brian To'o does. And at the same time, Penrith aren't the same team they were when he was, averaging that 70 a game. So they're, top 4 side now. They're not the clear number 1 side in the comp. So I think I'll wait to To'o.
I'll definitely wait, and there could be a situation where he's really cheap in about round 6 or round 7, and he can get on then, knowing that you probably have Origin coming up as well. Cody Walker, very, very popular. 399k, played off the bench last year for a fair bit, but he still did average 62 minutes. You're getting him at a huge discount, but he's 36. Soft tissue injuries are an issue for him. Plus, I already have about 4 Rabbitohs as is.
Yeah.
So you get that round 4 bye, and you're completely cooked if you've got all of Latrell, Cameron Murray, David Fifita, Campbell Graham is really popular. There's so many guys at the Rabbitohs this year.
Yeah, Cody Walker was a gun of the past, but I think his best Supercoach form is well behind him. He's struggled for a couple of years now, and like you said, he's 36 years old. He's getting towards the end of his career, and so the numbers for me just don't add up, and I would not be going there at all. That being said, I think most people are pretty bullish on the Rabbitohs this year, being, if not really good, like at least significantly better than they were last year. So, if they are firing well, he could be a big part of that, especially on that left edge. If he's got, David Fifita and Latrell outside him, they could link up and, make some magic. But I think it's just too risky.
That's the allure, isn't it? The players outside of him, David Fifita, Latrell Mitchell, AJ as well. But at his age, with the soft tissue injuries that he's had, it's just so hard to trust him. So I'm going to have to let Cody go through to the keeper.
Plus, you've got two really solid cheapies in that position too. Look at our, I know I keep mentioning all these old podcasts, but look at our Cheapy Bible podcast. Ethan Sanders, Kobe Black, Daniel Atkinson as well. Plus, you've got another good cheapie at 5'8" in Jonah Pezzett. So can you fit in Jonah Pezzett and Cody Walker, who you're basically going, not two cheapies, but it's almost like you're going two cheapies at 5'8". So for me, it's not for me, but I can see why people are getting on. Jermaine Hopgood. What are your thoughts? I originally had him as one of the best prop guys in Supercoach. Averaged 70 to end the season at prop, compared to a season average of 53. So he is underpriced. Having said that, all these cheapies are popping up at centre wing now in the halves. I think the prop is a position that you can probably spend a little bit more on than I was first considering. So Jermaine Hopgood has actually left my team right now and I've brought in Payne Haas instead.
Huge. Yeah, I like Jermaine Hopgood, and he was good at the end of last year after they stopped using him as hooker and in the middle, actually more in the middle a little bit. But you mentioned him before and I hadn't actually thought about it. But Jack DeBellin is now at Parramatta as well. So, there's every chance that Jermaine Hopgood doesn't actually play at prop this year. So, he was already not in my team, but I think I'm fading him even more now.
Yeah, I don't think I even considered Jermaine Hopgood, to be honest. I think that one season he had is a bit of, blast from the past. I think what we saw from him last year is what we'll get most of this year, especially with Jack DeBellin in there. 22% is way too high for me.
Yeah, he's had a serious neck injury in his past, and it's not recent, but anyone who's had a serious neck injury or even problems with concussion, if it's a sort of 50-50 call, I'm just like, no. So he was a guy who I was really keen on at the start of the season, but he's slowly going down the list with all the other buys coming up. Another guy who you could get in the front row, Tom Flegler, speaking of serious nerve injuries, he's had a really bad one in his shoulder. If he plays in round one, and the chat is that he won't have played for about 700 days. So I'm all around this. I want to see Tom Flegler back. He's played for Australia. He's played for the Maroons. I want this to happen. Supercoach-wise, I think it's too much of a risk. The word is that he will trial, and then if he goes well in trial, he will actually play in round one. So he's cheap, arguably a cheapie, right on the borderline of being a cheapie and a mid-ranger, but I think Taniela Paseka at a very sort of similar price would be the guy that I'd go for.
Yeah, I would love to see Flegler back on the field as well, but in terms of Supercoach, I think it's just way too big a risk. This is a guy who basically hasn't played in 2 years, so I think there's just way too many risks there. Plus, if he does come back, they'll probably be bringing him off the bench, which if you're going for a front row cheapie who's probably going to come off the bench, I think there's better options. Or like you said, Paseka, who's a little bit more, but is actually going to start for Manly. So there's way too many alarm bells for me. But that being said, if he looks good during the trials and he looks fit and healthy, there is a chance he actually starts round one. So, and if that were the case, he would be far more tempting. But for now, I think there's just way too many red flags.
Yeah, I just couldn't go there for all the reasons both you guys mentioned. But there's Jesse Colquhoun there as well. Similar sort of price to Paseka, like 330,000. starting at the Sharks. So there's a lot of good options there at that sort of 300k price at front row. So I think with all the risks around Flegler, it'll just be nice to see him back. But Supercoach wise, have to let him go.
Yeah, so many good mid-ranges, particularly in the forwards this year with the guys you've just mentioned. Hamish Stewart as well. Yep. Colquhoun's got the dual positioning. You've got Leka Halasima, who's next on his list, and Hamish Stewart, who's next on his list, who we've spoken about already, so we won't chat about him. Jermaine McEwen, I really like. Kai Pearce-Paul is gone. Tyson Frizell is a middle now, we think, although he did say he was training a little bit on the edge. So does Jermaine McEwen come in, play Kai Pearce-Paul's role from last year, which was essentially 80 minutes on an edge? It could happen. It looks like it's very likely. And if it does happen, then he is 100% in my Supercoach team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he played 80 minutes for, I think, the final 6 games of last year when they had other injuries. So, and during that period, he looked good, but he comes in at a cheaper price than what he averaged then, obviously because he had a few games off the bench. But Kai Pearce-Paul gone. There's 80 minutes up for grabs on an edge there. And you'd have to think, given he passed the eye test last year, so I think you'd have to think that he gets that spot. And I think he's basically a must-have.
Where's Thomas Cant? He was, he
was playing a bit of edge as well.
I was thinking about that.
Dylan Lucas was injured too.
Yeah, and his base was enormous.
Frizzell's, we think, moved to the middle. There's all sorts of things going on at the Knights. And, well, look, we may as well fast forward to another guy at the Knights, number 19 on our list at 11%, Sandon Smith. So does he play? So the news last week, I'll start with this, is that Dylan Brown has been training at number 6. Does this mean that Sandon Smith, who has been training at number 7, but also training at hooker, does he start at 7? Does he start at hooker? Or does he become that sort of bench utility who probably comes on and mostly plays hooker for a little bit to relieve someone like Phoenix Crossland? I have no idea. I don't know why he is 11th at 11% and 19th on our mid-ranger list. But Sandon Smith, if we get some confirmation that he is starting in that team, potentially takes the goal kicking if he does that too, because his goal kicking record is actually quite good. Does he become an option for Supercoach?
Yeah, I mean, if we get a good mail that he actually is starting, whether it's at halfback or hooker, I think he becomes incredibly tempting. But I think that the fact that there's just so much uncertainty at the moment means for now he's definitely one to just avoid completely until we get some more concrete mail. But yeah, if it turns out that he is actually going to start one of those positions, I would be very tempted to get him in, especially, like you said, he'll be probably kicking goals. So, but for now, I think there's just way too much uncertainty there.
Yeah, I don't know in what world you'd move Fletcher Sharp, their best player, by a long way last year out of the halves. So it just doesn't make sense to me. And, you're not going to bring in Dylan Brown and not start him. So for me, it's either he plays hooker or off the bench. So.
I think Ponga's been missing a bit of training lately, so Sharp has been practicing at fullback a bit.
Okay.
But you'd have to think that Ponga, I'm pretty sure they've said that Ponga will be fit for round 1. So you'd have to think when he's back at training that they overhaul their back line and Sharp goes to 6 and Brown to 7. But I think for now, just because Ponga hasn't been there, they may have been training differently, but it still just raises a ton of questions.
They won games off the back of Fletcher Sharp all year, so that was him playing 6. I don't know why you'd move him out of there. So.
There are some really good quotes from Tyson Frizell in our Predict Team story. Check out the news section of the app, which basically goes through exactly what Wilso just said. On to Selwyn Cobbo. So 54 average last year. Now at the Dolphins, the coach has essentially confirmed in a wing spot there, which is good. But would you be paying? I mean, he's pretty expensive, priced at an average of 54.
I would not be going there yet. I mean, that left wing spot at the Dolphins has been, Supercoach gold. Like, I can't remember his name. He's coming back from Jack Bostock. And they had another young sheepy there after Bostock did his ACL last year.
Nafahu.
Yeah, and they were all scoring pretty well. But so there's a good opportunity for him there. But how long does he actually have it? Because I think Bostock is expected back from around round 8. So Cobbo, he's expensive, and it'll be interesting to see what they do when Bostock is actually fit again. Because Cobbo could easily, be out of that side. So for me, there's potential there, but he's just too. It's just an awkward price for me.
Yeah, he doesn't do enough either. He's got that attacking upside when they're in the red zone, but outside of their own 50 metres, he just doesn't run the footy enough. I've had Cobbo in my team for the last 2 years, and you're just so frustrated because he's so big and he's so talented, but he just doesn't insert himself into the games when you'd want him to. So, to me, with the questions on his job security plus that factor, I just can't go near him.
Yeah, I think this is also a little bit of a hangover from when there were no cheapies like in that centre wing position, whereas now we've got quite a few who, although they're not confirmed, are looking pretty good. You got the 2 Dragons guys in Setu 2 and David Fifita. You got Tom Chester at the Cowboys, Makasini, and the young Titan who we spoke about earlier. So you got 5 pretty, okay cheapies popping up in that position when really earlier in the preseason we probably only had 1 in Makasini being really popular. So no Cobbo from me. Toby Couchman at the Dragons. He showed last year that he could be an absolute gun, go from the mid-range to being a keeper. Then he suffered 2 shoulder injuries. So you're getting him at a price where he's had 2 injury-affected games. I still think coming back from those shoulder injuries, it's a no from me when you can get guys who we've mentioned before in this podcast. They're a little bit cheaper and I think more reliable.
Yeah, I mean, he has looked good, and like we said, there is minutes up for grabs at the Dragons this year in their forward pack. But yeah, like you said, the injuries last year are a little bit concerning, but I think the biggest thing for me is that there's just better guys at the position who are cheaper or have more upside. So I don't hate it, but I think there's just, you can do better.
Yeah, I love Toby Couchman. He's got the duel, which is always handy. But for me, I look to upgrade those guys in, round 9, round 10 when they're peaking to a Toby Couchman, whereas he'll probably stick around that price at the start of the year. Maybe his minutes aren't what they will be when it's, later in the year. But I love Toby Couchman, but I just couldn't go in with that injury history.
Campbell Graham, very popular, another Rabbitoh, and I've mentioned already, owning too many Rabbitohs is absolute suicide for round 4, which is when they have the bye. He's just a little bit down the list for me at the Rabbitohs, coming off such a huge injury layoff. He's barely played in a couple of years. I know he's got that potential. He's played lots of rep footy, but it's too risky for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like the injury concerns are already alarming, but then you add in that there's already a bunch of much more Supercoach relevant Rabbitohs players, and then there's also a chance that he actually gets pushed from centre to wing this year. And I was actually looking at his numbers before, and for some reason I thought his numbers at wing back in, I think he last played wing consistently in like 2019. I thought his numbers were a lot better, but they were actually kind of disappointing. So plus, like, he hasn't played much in the last 2 years, and wingers need to, take the ball up a lot more than they did, I think, when he was last playing there. So there's just way too many red flags here.
Yeah, not for me either.
And finally, I know that you are for this guy, Sam Stonestreet, 13%, probably a little bit over the ownership I was expecting, but should get a wing spot there at the Sharkies with Ronaldo Mortalo out for the season.
Yeah, well, the all-important is he's on the left-hand side this year. He started on the right last year when Sione Katoa was out for the first half of the year, and they just get less ball there on that right-hand side. And being outside Jesse Ramian's obviously a lot less different to being outside Kale Iro. So I think he's at a good price. He's definitely underpriced. His base isn't as good as Mortalo or Katoa, so you can't expect him to be punching out Mortalo's scores consistently, but there's a lot of attack in that Sharks team, and he'll get 1 or 2 tries every week mostly. So I think he's a good pick. I'm gonna have him in my team because I love him. But there's definitely other options around.
Just the 4th Shark in your side, I'll point out as well. Will say, Rick?
Yeah, I've got him on my team at the moment as well. I'm interested in him. Like you said, he's not a base stat machine like some of the other options at the position, but he is inheriting a spot that notoriously has scored a lot of tries for the last few years. So I think the attacking upside is really there. I think he does need a try for big scores, but I mean, Ronaldo scores pretty much every week. So the opportunity is certainly there for him to go well.
Yeah, if he was back on the right, I wouldn't go there. But yeah, as you said, because he's on the left, it's just such a gold mine in Supercoach. So yeah.
Final segment of the show. We're each going to pick our top pod from the mid-range range. What are you thinking, Wilso?
Well, we alluded to him before, but I've got Jake Simpkin at Manly. I think the final 7 games last year for Manly, he played the whole 80 minutes or close to. So there's a massive opportunity for him there, but he's priced at an average of about 49, I think. So, he could be really good, especially if he does keep playing 80 minutes for Manly, which I think he's a very good chance of actually doing, because Manly have lost Jazz Tavanga, Gordon Chan, Kumtong, and a bunch of other hookers, and signed Zach Docker-Clay from the Roosters as sort of a backup. So I think there's a massive opportunity for him there to keep playing 80 minutes, and if he does, he averaged 62 when he was playing 80 minutes last year. So I think he's mighty tempting.
Yeah, I really like it. It's probably Reed Mahoney versus him in my team at the moment. And I'm just leaning towards Mahoney right now, but that could easily change during the off-season. Who's your big pod?
For me, it is a massive pod, but I expect if we got mail that he was going to start, that his ownership would skyrocket. I'm not sure what it is at the moment, but it's Blake Steep for me at the Chookies. I think he's the next big thing to come through the Roosters system. He had a strong run last year in the Origin period when most of their guys were on Origin duty. You had Angus Crichton away and all those other guys. So he slotted in the middle, played 55 minutes a game, knocked out a 70 average over that run. So his lowest was a 50 and he played 40 minutes that game. So if he gets a starting spot, which I think he genuinely could if Nafahu White moves back into front row. Obviously he deputised at 13 a lot last year. I think he could be a massive play. So he's sub 400k. And he's a gun. So
look, I had him for a bunch of weeks in my draft league over Origin, and he was sensational. So I absolutely see what you were saying, and I 100% agree that there are opportunities at the Roosters in their forward pack. Victor Radley's obviously suspended for a little bit at the start of the year. You mentioned Nafahu White, who kind of, I guess, locked down a lock spot there late in the season, but is also noted as front rower. The guy who I like is Siwa Wong, who should play on an edge with Victor Radley out. He should improve his minutes big time there as well. So, look, I mean, I think we all agree, big opportunities in the Roosters forward pack.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see really how it all plays out and how the pre-season sort of shapes up. That's the great thing about Supercoach. We get to see him play a few games, so we'll see how they all line up. But, Siwa Wong, he's the same, but, big opportunities incoming.
Yeah, I sort of view them pretty much the same, but I think if I had to have one, I would lean Sia Wong. But Blake Steep is a guy that, even if he doesn't start the year, if they get one injury in the back row, he could be, a massive beneficiary. So I like both of them.
It'd be interesting in draft. It'd be interesting in draft, sort of like, if you want to reach for him and, take him early, but, could be nice. So, sorry to cut you off.
I was going to say exactly the same thing. Is he on your sleepers list for Supercoach?
Not currently on the sleepers list, but he could be one of the sleepers to watch.
Right, that story is coming out very soon, so look out for it. Big thanks to Wilso. Big thanks to Jet. We'll catch you next week.